I heard myself.
There, that's better. Is it better?
Levi, you just give us a thumbs down if we get too quiet.
Okay, it's 6:30. Let's go ahead and start the Hillsboro City Commission meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Okay, we're getting some feedback, so it sounds like it's probably working. Have all the commissioners had a chance to read the minutes from December 20th? And if so, could I get a motion to take and approve the minutes as written?
I'll move to approve.
Levi moves to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Dave seconds. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. And reading of the minutes carries. Presentation of the bills. I had a chance to go through the bills from my perspective. Have all the other commissioners had a chance to review the bills? And if so, could I get a motion to take and approve the presentation of the bills as written and given?
I'll move to approve.
Levi moves. Do I have a second? Mike seconds. Do I have any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. We would like to take and amend the agenda tonight, so to talk about the credit card notes that were given that we weren't able to cover on the 20th of December. So if I could get a motion to amend our January 3rd agenda to include discussion about the credit card.
That'd be 6, 7 then, or where are you going to put that under, Ashley?
We'll just, yep, we'll just do it at the same time.
So 6.7.
I'd like to add 2021-004 and 2021-002 HBC Hillsboro beautification tickets. Just an update on those also.
So 2021's on, Levi? You got another one, or these are two separate ones?
The ones that we talked about at the last meeting, just see
Okay.
what our progress on.
2021-004.
Yep, and I think it's 2021-002.
Okay, and you want to put those on 6.4 with the same discussion?
Or 6, we can make it at 6.8, is fine.
6.8, okay. So now do I have a motion to take and,
I'll move to make the changes to the.
Levi makes a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Mike seconds, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. Okay, city commissioner reports. Paul, let's start with you tonight.
Okay, on the cemetery side of it, of course, there's not much going on in the cemetery, but because it is new to me, I'm hoping anybody out there listening, and I talked to Mike a little bit today, if there's any cemetery issues or concerns going into the spring, because I'm new to it, I'd like people to notify me and let me know, anybody that out there listening, so we can give some time to address those before the spring arises. On the personnel side, we'll be going through the handbook some tonight, so we'll have a lot of questions there. On the electric side, I'm still working with Jim on that. Of course, he's out, so I haven't had a lot of time to visit with him. And of course, HEDC hasn't met yet. I do have some questions on the sales tax. I don't know if that number is right, and I need some question at some point on that to see where that's at. And then I'd like to, at some point, if we could get together and set up a point when, I know you said that they were changing their chair maybe in January. So I'd like to, whoever that ends up being, and yourself and me, if we could get that. So that's kind of what I want to move forward on that. So other than that, that's all I would like to make sure that we do that. So
I'll buy you coffee sometime then and we'll talk about it.
let's do it. Yep.
Okay.
And we'll see if we can maybe get Gary or somebody to just start the process anyway. So
You bet. Anything
that's
else,
all I
Paul?
have. That's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on to Mike.
The only thing I have is for next Monday's P&Z, I'm gonna try and get most of the contractors there for the meeting to see what their beefs are about the building permit process, so,
I know I talked to Mitch and Casey a month ago, and yeah, they're looking forward to having that meeting with you, so
so,
Okay.
that's all I got.
I'll try to make that one also. Okay, Dave,
The only thing I have is, tomorrow at 10, Terry and I and Ashley and Steve will be meeting to talk about the street repairs. We'll have a report for you in the following commission meeting. That's all I have.
thanks, Dave. And I was gone for about a week traveling, and so I'm kind of behind on what's happening out at the airport, but and then financial, I think we're working okay. The audit and everything's proceeding, and you're wrapping up on that. So I saw the addition that we want to do to the handbook. I think that's smart, and that was part of what we wanted to do. So, Levi,
The only thing I have is, last year we talked about replacement of the cover for the pool, and we held off because we didn't get it until November. So I'm just hoping for approval to start working on that, so we can look at new cover for the pools. Or for the large pool, I should say. That one's well been used.
could I get a motion then for Levi to be able to take a look at what the cost and some of the products that are available for the replacement of the cover on the pool?
I'll make the motion.
Dave makes a motion. Could I get a second?
Second,
Mike seconds. Any other discussion? Okay, Paul?
Yes.
Mike?
yes.
Dave?
Yes.
And a yes for me.
And that's all I have for tonight.
Okay, moving on to the report of the city officers. Jim is out. Anybody know how his, he came through the surgery good? How's his hip doing?
Good. He came into the office today with a cane. I was on lunch when he came in, so, but sounds like everything's going good.
And just for Jim and his crew, I did get a couple of comments about how the snow removal, I was gone, but the snow removal went well, and a couple of citizens said that they appreciated getting the streets cleared. I know it was a big job, and we got some more to go, so. Okay, moving on to you, John. Anything from the city attorney's perspective?
Nothing tonight that's not on the agenda.
Okay. Ashley?
First thing is, if anybody is interested in running for city commission on the primary election on June 14th of this year, there is 2 regular commission seats coming up, which would be for Commissioner Reese and Commissioner Sather. And then the President Sandoz seat is also coming available in June. Those are those are 2 separate items, or 3 separate items. There's 2 regular commission terms available, and then the presidency is a separate thing so you have to run for one or the other. You can't run combined. The packets are already put together, and they're in the auditor's office. So anybody that is interested in running for city commission or the city commission president, stop by the auditor's office. We're open Monday through Friday from 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. to pick up those packets. Those packets are due to the auditor's office by 4 p.m. on April 11th of this year. No exceptions. If it's a minute late, we cannot accept it. So if anybody is interested, you can come and grab a packet for that. You have to be a resident of Hillsboro for 6 months preceding the election.
And I'd like to compliment some of the citizens with the special election, Paul, and some of the other citizens that ran. I think it's a good trend. I'd like to see more participation in the elections and not less. So again, I compliment the citizens that would like to take and run for office out there.
And everything else I have is on the agenda.
Okay. And talking to Steve Hunt today, one of the things that he would like the commission to take and visit for the next meeting is the snow removal ordinance he would like to see to be rewritten. Right now it says that there's going to be notification that goes out 6 hours, before plowing, and we kind of had a little bit of a discussion, and we thought that the appropriate way would be to say that it's incumbent upon the citizens to move their cars and vehicles off the streets, so that the streets can be cleaned. He just wanted us to kind of mention it as a placemaker, basically for us to take and have a discussion about how we want to take and modify on the next commission meeting. I think it makes a lot of sense if we change the ordinance, and I don't think it'd be too difficult, JR, to just say that the public has to take, and after a large snowfall, remove the vehicles and other, vehicles, trailers, different things like that off the street, so that there's not a problem plowing it. But just wanted to take and say that Steve was concerned that right now it's a tough ordinance for him to enforce, and he'd like to have more of a generalized, so that we can kind of drive that with the citizens without having to make some special announcement that would be tough for us to do. Did I capture that okay?
Yeah, and I think if JR got together with Steve, he could, kind of find out what he's
Yeah, it would be
working
one
for.
sentence change is what we thought on the ordinance, JR. Yep, I know you can.
I think the other thing that we should look at is, and I've talked about it, and Steve in the past, we just never brought it up, was that not necessarily do they have to put the tickets on the cars. We could have, as the public works crew or somebody else, or one of our designees, to go around and put the tickets on, as long as they keep track of when they were placed and what time, so that follow-up could be done. And then if it did need to be enforced, it could get done, because at this point I don't know that always the sheriff's department's going to have time during a snowstorm or during those times when we need it done. So that might be another option for us to look at.
And I'd want to take and, again, bring that up with Jim and his team to make sure that that would work. But again, I think if we made that general statement that it's the citizens that are responsible for getting them off the streets, that would hopefully alleviate a lot of it.
But I think you still have to place a ticket on there, and it has to be on for so long before you would be able to tow. So that's something we should look at also.
Or we could just pick a certain part of town and tell them that if you're parked on the streets in that part of town on this certain night, you are gonna get towed,
And I think that's what some of the larger cities do too, is they have designated streets that are emergencies and then clearing, and it kind of sequences through. So they, I think they give them, 12 hours on some of the areas. But let's bring that discussion up, and then JR, stand by to, take a look at how we can change that ordinance and tweak it up a little bit. I'd like to go back to Ashley to take and talk about a bill that she got today.
So we had somebody call in last week, middle of December. It was a hectic month, but I was in the office by myself. Julie was out. Sarah had not started yet. And this account it's a rental account. And so when they asked for the bill, and like I said, I was by myself, I pulled up the wrong account and told them that there was a zero balance. They called in today, and they are asking, since I told them the incorrect amount, if we could take off $20 off their bill, even though the late charge was only $1.97. I said that is something I would have to ask you guys, and they were very confused on how our billing went, and so both Julie and I told them it's from the 20th to the 20th, not the 1st through the 30th, and so they were thinking that their tenant should owe part of this bill, and I said, well, that's something that you're going to have to talk to your tenant about. And once I went through step by step with them, like, they understood the billing cycle, but they asked if they could get $20 off their bill, because I had told them, I had screwed up and told them that it was zero when really they had a bill, because I clicked on the wrong account. But like I said, the late fee was only $1.97. So I'm asking on behalf of this.
I don't think it
Rental
matters
property.
that you made a mistake. Shouldn't cost us money. They still owe the money. They used it. If you wanna take the
The late fee.
fees off, fine, but $20, no.
Yeah, I
That's
agree
my-
with Mike that if we want to take and discuss the dollar, whatever it is, late fee, you know, doing away with that, I'd be happy to do it, but the $20, again, that's their responsibility to work with their tenants, knowing the billing cycle, so I don't think that letting them have $20 back because of a simple, you know, issue with the billing would be appropriate, so, but I'd like to hear from the other commissioners.
If the word gets out that we gave $20, then
Everybody,
everybody's gonna
yep.
want it.
It's a precedence we wouldn't want to start.
To me, it's an honest mistake. You know, now if ASHA was doing this time after time after time, then we'd have to address it, but, you know, people make mistakes and it's $20, they should be able to, if they owe it, they owe it. You should, you know, that's just.
And
that's
we've been
just
pretty
my-
lenient about taking care of this particular group before to, you know, allowing them to have a little bit of late fee, you know, basically taking care of some of those things. So if the commissioners think it's appropriate and for them to have a kind of a, make it a win-win for everybody, that if we want to take and have a motion to allow them to not pay a late fee, I'd be happy to take and entertain that.
You need-
I'll make the motion.
Mike makes a motion to, you know, do away with the late fee on this particular one. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Paul seconds. Any other discussion? Okay, Levi?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
And a yes for me. That covers that one. And that was all? Okay. Moving on to the old business. Excuse me. The food truck ordinance number 528, update, revision, reviews. It's in our packet here. We've been looking through it real quick. We do have JR here to take and answer any questions, but has everybody had a chance to look at the food truck issues and make sure that we have a good, healthy ordinance for food truck / trailers?
I only have one recommendation on 8.1007 on part 9, where it says they're allowed, food truck can operate between 7 and 10 p.m. and then they need to move off the property. Do we want to visit that? Because we do have the one in town that generally leaves it on some premises. So should we add in, unless written approval from the property owner is submitted to the city, that they are allowed to park there for longer times?
I just want to make sure, Levi, that we're talking about, is that only when it's 150 feet from a residence? And if it's in a commercial area, say it pulls into Dollar General, then there's no hour limit on it? Is that right? Or do we need to take and modify that particular number 9 to say that it would be for any area within?
That's what it says.
JR, do you want my copy? Would that be easier?
7
I
to
have
10
another
if it's
copy,
within
too.
150 feet.
Of the residentially zoned
Residentially
area.
zoned area.
And we talk about the 3 different areas that they can operate in, which was commercial.
There was only 2, I thought, commercial 1 and commercial 2.
I thought I read 3. So to me, that tells me, well, I guess commercial could be within 150 feet of a residential area. Where did I read that? Oh, here it is, number 8. Yep, you're right. Industrial, C1 commercial, or C2 commercial. So there's 3 sections there
Which it could be within 150 feet on any
of
one
a
of those.
residential. Yeah, the Dollar General one would be a good example of that one this last time, because it was just across the street. But if it sets up over at Total Ag, does it have to be tore down?
Well, that's where I think it's part of that letter, the written approval from the owner and tenant.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
if he's over there, he shouldn't need permission, you know, if they give him permission to stay there, but.
But also, is it, so our police and sheriff's department are aware that this vehicle is gonna be parked there for long periods of time, I think. I don't know, I'm just saying that, you know,
Well, and then number 4, a food truck must be removed from its operating location and parked in a storage area each night. So maybe that covers everything?
but it's still saying where's in a storage area is not necessarily where it's working or at,
Right,
so
right.
that's,
But if I interpret that, that says that if I'm doing, you know, retail food out at Total Ag, for example, in a commercial area, that I still have to take my truck down and store it for the night, according to number 4.
correct.
So if that clarifies it, I'm okay with that.
I'm
But
just-
what about the one at A&R?
I'm just saying, we have allowed him in the past that he's parked everywhere. He's the one that brought it to us. Do we want to? I don't think it's a horrible idea. I think it's just part of it is they don't want somebody to come in and park and leave their truck there forever. I feel as long as the property owner says it's okay to leave it there and they have their, it just needs to be written and turned in on the application. Just my thought.
I agree with you.
And I think he did get the approval from A&R to park it next
Right.
to it, yeah.
But as of right now, it'll say, if you go by number 4, it'll say that
He has to move it.
he has to move it every night.
Could the A&R say that that's a storage area? I know I'm nitpicking, but, yeah, you know, I could interpret it that that's also a storage area as well as a place to operate from, but,
Or why not just fix it while you guys are doing it now? It'd be easier to fix
That's
it.
what I'm saying. It's easier to fix it now than it is to.
Yeah,
Well, let's just add that
that part.
unless property owner approval.
on number 4, Mike?
Yeah,
Okay,
Well, I think it'd have to be for both 4 and 9.
That's what I was gonna say, it's kinda contradicting itself.
Do you know what they're talking about, JR? Okay.
Thoughts, JR? Because that is what number 9 is saying, that if it's in a residential area, you can only operate it between 7 and 10.
so if we change number 4, I don't think we have to change number 9 then. Okay. What do the commissioners think about taking that last sentence off?
No, it isn't. That's the problem we have. Yeah. I'll go through it, though. I'll go through it here, so you probably read it, I'm assuming. The
Yeah.
updated one? Levi?
Yeah.
I can kinda go through it too, if you want.
I
On
made
the ones
copies
that we,
of the wrong one for tonight's meeting, not the red line one that I sent to you guys.
I'll go through the
That's
red
fine.
one now, Michelle.
Sorry,
Let these
Michelle.
guys- So if you go to, on 8.1006, parking and traffic regulations, number 2, food truck may not these are some other changes that I talked to JR about. That's why they're in the red. Food truck may not park on a sidewalk or other city right-of-way without prior approval from the city commission or its authorized agent. Whereas before, I believe it was they couldn't park on the right-of-way, correct? So that's one thing that we talked about changing. And you go down to number 5, customer may not use the right-of-way of any city landscaped area for queuing. I had to look that up. That's a line. Did you guys all know that?
What
Form-
did you say?
Forming a line. Okay. How do you pronounce it?
Queuing?
Queuing, okay. Okay, customer may not use the right-of-way for any city landscaped area for queuing and then we'd add, without prior approval from the city commission. So if we have something that they're set up at a city event and it's on their city right of way, that obviously the city council would have to approve them having that line up of people in that area. It's just kind of, because if you read it word for word, no matter what you did, you couldn't do that. You know, so that was that one. And then on number 8, we talked a little bit about on number 8, it says approval must be granted by the owner and tenant. We were talking about if we should have written approval or not. I think JR made a, was it you, JR? It might have been the deputy made a comment about, the nice thing about a written is that, as they can say, did you get permission from Dollar General to do this? They can say yes. Well, how does the sheriff's department know that they have permission? Where we talked about maybe just having, the city would just have a little form that they just, you go to Dollar General and they'll say, yeah, I give you permission, and then that food truck driver, yep, see, here it is, they signed it. Instead of just taking his word for it. So that's where they put written approval must be granted. So these are just suggestions. And then,
Well, actually on it, it doesn't say written, it just says approval.
yeah, but that's what they're saying, that's where he was saying it would be nice to have written approval. That way they know. Because if I say, yeah, Sarah told me I could do this. Well, what if Sarah didn't tell you? Or what if, out of Dollar General? So what his question was is, instead of me going to find out, did they actually give approval, if I have a written, and it can just be simple as, I give this food truck permission to work here. And they could actually do it if they do it, let's say at the A&R bar, if they do it for the year, they just have one that says, I gave Mike permission to park here for the year 2022.
Yep,
You know,
I
whenever.
think the written portion is important because, again, if the sheriff's department or someone comes to check, they have to have something that they can show. So I agree with adding the written back in. I know that it was red line, but let's add written back in.
Yep.
I think even in there, you could just put written approval with dates or something to that effect, instead of trying to add or change it down below where it says, another written permission. Would that work, JR? If we say, that'd be number 8 on the 1.006 under parking and traffic regulations. If we just say written approval with dates of permission.
So going back to number 9, and I think Dave's reading it, Ashley brought it up for me, but within 200 feet of a restaurant, my pub will be considered a restaurant. Do I have to, if Mike wants to come and park in the street, for an event, does he have to go by that 200-foot restriction?
Well, he'd have to come to us, to the city commission anyways, because he couldn't park on the street for an event unless he got approval by reading this already. So then we could also grant variance on that also. That would be my assumption of it.
What do the other commissioners think about it? That's quite a distance from, when you look at all the things that we've added into 9, I mean, that's gonna take out a pretty big portion of, an ability for a food truck or a trailer to take and park around the courthouse corner there.
Any suggestions on to word that, JR?
I think something like that would be appropriate, and then, obviously, like you say, the commission would be looking at the same thing. Yep.
So it could be if a food truck is parked less than 200 feet away from the restaurant, they have to have that restaurant's approval, something like that.
Or we could even say in front of that restaurant. You can't park in front of the restaurant with that.
Well, see, I'm going back to the junkyard, you know, if you go down there, they had 2 food trucks, and they parked right in front of their outside eating and drinking area. And to me, it's attractive in a way that, you know, we're never gonna have enough food in Hillsboro. So, you know, I wouldn't have any problems with the same issue that they'd be able to park in close proximity to my entrance. I wouldn't have a problem with that. The only thing is that we have limited parking, which is something totally different to deal with. But from my perspective, I can see where we're trying to make sure that, you know, the restaurant businesses are taken care of, but in a way, having competition and, you know, collaboration is maybe a better way to look at this. So, just my opinion.
I don't know, I don't know about the 200 feet part, but I think that as long as that communication is in between the restaurant owner and the food trucks, I think that would be the paramount thing that we'd want to make sure that, you know, if 200 feet is reasonable,
It's
you know.
actually 150 is what it says.
150, okay. Yeah, this one says 200, yeah.
Well,
on
it says
mine.
150 on the second. Oh, that's residential.
That's residential.
There we go.
150 is half a block.
It's quite a ways.
Mhm.
200 is even more.
Right, so that would really be the only debate to me would be if the 150 or 200, whatever you want to go, is it's necessary to be that much. You know, obviously right in front of it or close to, like that would be, you'd want the restaurant to,
But there again, you could take it away because you're not authorized to park on that property. You're not gonna park on the city street without approval through us, which is gonna be a special event anyways, which they would have to get approval through us. They're not gonna be able to, park on that restaurant's lot unless they got approval from that restaurant owner.
right. Okay, let's use this as an example. He wants to park where I park my pickup on the boulevard. Could he?
No. The boulevard,
Why?
the boulevard is city property.
City property?
Or it also could be considered private property because you're taking care of it as the business or the resident.
Okay. Or let's say he's in my parking lot and it's less than 200 feet, can he?
He'd have to get approval to park in your parking lot
From me,
from you.
right? What I'm saying is the point I'm trying to make is at what point where do we want him? So because I'd say, well, you can park there, but I feel that if he's not happy with it or any restaurant owner, I wouldn't allow that to happen. You know what I mean? So what is that comfortable range, or at what point do they have to, that we want them to get permission from the restaurant owner? At any point, or?
Well, and now to take Paul's argument a little bit further too, that, you know, when Miller's does their specials outside on the east side of the building, and, you know, using the scenario that Paul's talking about, you know, that should also be the grocery store, not just a restaurant. You know, you wouldn't want a food truck from Grand Forks or Fargo to come and park in your parking lot when they're trying to have a fundraising event for the fire department or anything
Right.
like that on the sidewalk across from Miller's. So I'm trying to figure out a way to keep it kind of ambiguous, but still not so restrictive that local, you know, food trucks or trailers would have a problem with it.
Yeah, that's a tough one because you cover so many, you know, like you said, the Miller stuff and the fire department, and, you know, you can, you know, and even the icy or the snow cones, whatever, do we, you know?
So then they couldn't park, if we went by 200 feet, then they couldn't park there.
Well, but then now you're not talking we're talking restaurants too. So, okay, what's a restaurant and what's, you know, because Miller's isn't a restaurant. And would that be 200 feet from Terry's if you measured it off? You know,
Probably not.
probably not, you know, so, you know, do we want to, I don't know, is it simple as just getting that business's permission? Would that be the easiest route to go?
I would think so.
And I think that that's the appropriate way to do it.
I think so too, just for good relationships, if
Yep.
nothing else, you know, and if they're not happy, well, then you park 205 feet away, if it's that big a deal to you. I don't know, what do you think, Levi?
I don't think that we should necessarily have to. I mean, we're putting in a food truck ordinance because we had people coming in. It wasn't because We have 1,000 people coming in. I don't know that we have to get too restrictive on it at this point. The point is we wanted to see who's in here, make sure they're registered, make sure they're bringing in quality, clean food into our community. It's not about, it wasn't necessarily all about the other stuff that we're trying to get into.
But do we want to be proactive so we don't have that problem?
We're also not Fargo and Grand Forks where
I understand.
I think that business owners and HBA and everybody can work together, I think, to get that done.
I would sure hope so too, but
And I must have missed it, but is there something specifically in here that says where the city taxes, get reimbursed to us?
It was just gonna go black, that's why I touched it. I don't know.
number 10 on that same line there. It says all food trucks must comply with state and local sales tax regulations. At the request of the city, food and truck licenses shall provide adequate proof of compliance with the collection and remittance of applicable sales tax. It's the very last thing on the third page there. It's under 8.1007. This is in the updated one. It might not be on yours, 10.
I have it pulled up.
Yep,
Oh,
it's
you have
right
it pulled
here.
up, okay.
Yep, I like that, okay.
And I think
Could you slide that over?
You bet.
if we go back to number 9 or number 8 under the hours of operation, I think we could cross out if it is in with 150 residential zone and say that a food truck should operate between 7 and 10 most days, unless there's some other event going on, which we would then authorize for. Just my thought.
Mike, is Paul not sharing?
I showed it to him earlier, so they both were reading it, so
It was just.
they probably didn't get to the last page, so.
Last page is just signatures.
I
Oh, wait,
was
it got
just
changed.
teasing.
No, I have, mine's got 9
Oh
and
yeah, I
10 on
gotta
it.
add it a little bit on there.
So,
That's just my thought.
That kind of makes sense. I'm just trying to figure out why we put 150 feet in there in the first place.
I'm assuming JR must took it from another community that probably has that.
I think I can agree with that, Levi, to take the 150 feet out. I think that portion of that sentence,
Well, and
We can do
basically
without-
changing that sentence to say that a food truck may operate between the hours of 7 a.m. to
With-
10 p.m.
yep, with the 30-minute in between,
Yep.
and that it has to be moved to storage. Okay, so we'll take, and if the other commissioners agree, we'll just go ahead and take that, if within 150 feet out of there.
did you catch that, JR? And I think under the circumstances, we're gonna have to have him do it all over, and then we can get a,
I don't think
accurate.
we'll be having any food trucks in the
No.
next month.
well, at least not for another week or two, so. Should be good through January.
Not with another 5 inches coming.
Maybe Thursday. Okay,
Unless we park it
Yeah.
in the shop, I'm not sure.
Well, I don't know.
any other discussion?
Yeah, I got
on-
a couple
Okay.
things on this. How much are we thinking for a permit? Are we gonna have a permit? Because we're gonna have to have some way that,
What
But-
did Mike say that he was paying when he brought this issue up for his
Was
license?
it, I don't remember if it was like 100 or 150, I thought he said.
well, we talked, Mike talked, I talked to Mike about it, and, and you can do what you want, he said, but even if, let's say you go with a $50 permit for a year, then you you only have to do the one permit, you don't have to do a daily permit, you do the one, if you make it $100, that's reasonable, and then you say, but that was just a starting point, he said.
I don't think that we really need a permit process. The point of it is for us to know, or I don't think we need amount on it, because the amount of the number for the price is to help offset the cost of the administration of it. Our administration of it is, here it is, they'll hand it in the office and we're done. We're not
But
having.
I think the point, Levi, excuse me, was that when Mike talked to a number of us, that if he's paying it, why aren't the other trucks paying it? So,
Is he paying a city permit though?
No.
He isn't paying a permit
No,
right now.
he
Not
was
for
paying
Hillsboro.
at other
a
places.
license, right?
Okay.
He's paying for a
He
license
has
for
his
the state.
license,
Yeah.
But
they all
everybody's
have to
paying
do
for a
that.
license for the state,
Right.
because they're not gonna be allowed to come in if they don't have that license from the state. That's in here too, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
do.
so-
So
think
we don't
that
have
more-
to have a local one, no, he just asked, so.
But I do think they'd be more apt to abide by the rules if there was a permit fee or a fine if they don't file paperwork.
There is a fine of $1,000 if
Yeah.
they don't file.
If they're not registered with the state, so,
I missed that.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's with the state.
right,
I
right.
think Ashley's trying to,
For
No,
an
the
extra
city,
fine
how
with
does-
us.
Extra
No,
fine
yeah.
with us.
it says right here, any violations of this chapter shall be subject to removal of the mobile food truck license for the remainder of the license issuance period, a ticket of $1,000, or both a license revocation and a ticket.
But is that from the state or us?
That's our license.
Okay.
what number is that?
That'd be 8.1002, number line item 4.
So we would be able to, as a city, take the food truck state license.
The license referred to is the city license.
And so that kind of goes back to, do we have a license for the local truck?
Yes, so the license for the local truck is for 1 year.
And it's a state license, right?
No, our license, to get it, you need to have the state license, you need to have approval from the business where you're gonna park, and you need to show that you have, your insurance,
Insurance,
Department of Health.
Yep.
your Department of Health, which would be your other, all those have to be in one packet, turned in and said, here it is. Ashley would then issue a certificate that says you are licensed from,
So we'd have to make one like we
just like we do for the beer
liquor.
liquor.
Okay.
Yep.
basically it says, no person shall set up or operate a food truck without first obtaining a license, that means the city, and meeting the requirements and conditions laid out in this chapter. The city auditor is authorized to issue a license for a mobile truck. This license may only be obtained if the North Dakota Department of Health has licensed the food truck. So they'd have to have that proof. Plus, they would have to have proof of insurance. So these are all things you'd have as a cheat sheet before you gave them the permit.
Right.
They'd have to have proof of this in their
Right.
truck.
So
Okay,
this
so-
ordinance would just have to sit out front
Right,
so that we
right.
had this at all times.
Right.
And so now if Mike goes to Grand Forks and sets up his food truck, he pays a permit.
Yes.
So I think it would be fair that a truck that comes from Grand Forks or Fargo to Hillsboro should have to pay a similar permit for them to operate here.
It really doesn't matter to me. Unless it's a huge burden on our auditor's office to do the paperwork. You know, what are we gonna, one question I was asked by a friend that was in this line of, was a commissioner. He says, what are you doing with the money? If you're gonna charge a fee, what are you doing with it? Are you just charging a fee for the sake of charging a fee? Or, you know, and that's my point here is
Where
is
is
if
it
we're not gonna
going?
put this money towards an expense of some sort, why do we really need to charge them a fee? You know,
It doesn't cost us anything for the paper. It doesn't.
Right.
I mean, we charge a fee for pet licenses, but that pays for the tags and the different things.
right.
We
So-
don't have anything that we need to
Right.
pay for with this license.
And not that $20 or $50 should, if $50 is gonna keep a food truck from coming to Hillsboro, you know, then they got bigger problems and,
But the point of this was to get them licensed to know that
so we know
they're-
we're here.
that
Yep.
they're safe.
Yep.
And that they know that they're paying their taxes, which
Yep.
that's where we want the revenue. We don't need the $20 or the $50 is my opinion.
Both good arguments. What do you?
I think we should just skip the permit, and as long as they got all the right paperwork and from the state and the Board of Health and.
Well, they have to have the permit, they just
You
don't
mean
have to
the
pay
fee.
for it.
You mean the fee?
The fee.
Skip the fee,
Yeah,
yeah.
skip the
That-
fee,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Yep.
Skip the fee.
Yeah, cause we
So-
still want them to come into the
so-
city
Right.
hall.
So you
So-
okay
Mike,
on
you-
skipping
you
the
okay
fee,
with that
Mike?
too? Okay, could I,
And I would like to see Ashley or JR come up with this ordinance, a application, you know, with a checklist of this is what you need with it, and then a certificate of this is what we're gonna look like.
Right, and also a little form for the written, to park their truck there.
and can we
Include
take-
that in that packet too.
And can we take and hang that on the
That
social
they-
media site as well as the website?
So you want like, what are you talking about?
Well, we're
You-
just-
like a certificate, so they have to hang it up, so when you
Well,
walk
no,
up
just
there, you
something
can
though
see
that,
they're
well, the
licensed.
certificate, I'm not sure what he's looking for, but I'm looking for just so that they have gotten written proof from the business owner that they can park there.
Oh,
That part
okay.
too. I was saying certificate, like
That
we do
prove
for
it,
the
right,
liquor
right.
license, that they are approved that they
Right,
can
right.
Yeah.
operate.
And that's the one they would have to display in their truck.
That's why I was confused. You guys
Yeah.
are talking about two different
Yeah,
things.
yeah. Well, they're both needed to be included in that packet though.
Right.
So-
Yep, and then put all the packet on the website and then
But we
advertise on
haven't-
social media.
I would assume that, I think we should wait till all this is together.
Right, yep.
We get it one more final
Right.
time, and then
Yep.
we got two.
I
readings of-
agree. Yep, we just wait till next meeting and everybody has a chance to read the final draft. It might take a couple meetings, but get it right.
As long as Ashley sends out the right one.
As long as Ashley sends out the right one.
Man.
A hooch.
Jeez.
Thanks for that burn, Levi.
So with that, we'll go ahead and table the food truck ordinance basically to take and get modified and bring it back at either the next or the following city commission meeting.
If you need a motion, I'll motion to table it if you
Okay,
need one.
so Paul makes a
Second.
motion. Second is Levi. Any other discussion? Levi?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
And a yes for me. Moving on to the employee handbook. Paul, I'm gonna turn it over to you at this point.
Has everybody had a chance to preview that handbook?
Not as much as I would
Not
like.
as much as you'd like. No, it's, I
There's
was
a
telling
lot.
somebody today, it seems awful, kind of a sad state for our culture when we have to have a 8-page employee handbook. It's, doesn't say much, but it's the world we live in, unfortunately. So if we kind of page through it real quick, there isn't too many things that are gonna come to the top. I think there was probably a half a dozen things or so, and you guys just jump in if I'm wrong, but as you can see, they've changed the chain of command or added the chain of command on page 5.
Yeah, 'cause that was not in there prior to Sean and I looking at it.
I don't know if anybody has any questions on that. Does that look good to everybody?
Yep.
Okay. We'll keep paging forward here.
10, I think, is the next one.
What's that?
10 is the next page.
10 is the next one, okay. Okay, this is kind of something I think Ashley had brought up, so maybe she can kind of give her about this. I'm assuming you added that in as far as closing, page 10,
For which one? Oh, the
inclement weather.
I was told I just have to talk to the commission president. And so, instead of talking to the city commission as a whole, Sean and I thought the president or the designated commission member, that if you guys would want to pick somebody for that to make it have one person versus having to get you all together.
I don't think it says city. I don't read it as, it just says a city commissioner, not a commission.
If everybody's okay, so you're saying if they talk to a city commissioner,
Right.
and we
You don't-
said,
And I
yeah,
think we could take out sheriff. I don't think that we necessarily need that in there.
So it wouldn't matter if I talk to Mike versus Terry, or
I don't think so, because you're just getting opinion of whether or not it's bad enough to do it, and
okay.
just because if Terry, what if he's in Germany or China or wherever, you're not gonna be able to get a
wherever
hold of
Terry
him,
ends
so-
up, right?
Well, then I'd go to the vice president. So I went to the president this last time. Then I'd go to the vice president next. I guess would be my.
I'm guessing you've
Oh,
got sheriff in there mainly as more of a you know,
Both
how
the
bad
roads
is,
are
how bad
closed.
is this and should we type of
Yeah.
thing maybe?
Right.
I
So
think
leave
keeping the
that in?
sheriff in, yeah.
No.
And I think, I don't
But
know,
It's just consultation is what it says.
Right,
so.
but ultimately, it's your decision with the office. I think that's
Mhm.
the biggest thing, is where you leaving it to you to decide if you need to close the office.
But
And
that doesn't
sometimes
mean
I
that if
think-
it starts winning, you're gonna get a couple flakes of snow that,
but
I
I-
mean, you could, we could close the off, you could also close the office and you guys still be working,
Right.
just so people aren't coming in.
but I think, I kinda like the idea, not because I'm the president, but I like the way it worked last time. Even though I was out of town, Ashley called me, and yep, let's go ahead and do that. She told me that the courthouse was closed and all those things. You know, so I like having somebody that, you know, as kind of the head of the commission, to be able to do that, that it takes the responsibility out of the, you know, everyone else's. It's a decision kind of that should come from the top to take and confirm it. I
just as long as she has a second, if you're not available, or
Yep.
she can't
Well, and
recontact.
That's
and
what
I
I,
would go to
Well,
the
that's
vice
fine.
president.
Yeah,
at that
that's
point.
kinda what Levi
what
had
I'm not,
said.
what I'm saying is, that I don't think we have to specify that it has to go to Terry. I'm just saying, if we say a city commissioner, if Ashley knows that every time she's gonna consult Terry, and then if she can't get ahold of Terry, then she'd come to somebody else.
Right, right.
I don't think we need to write it all out. I think it's just, the way it was, I think is fine, just in my opinion. As long as you know, and, cause I think.
I'm,
we are
I'm
all
fine,
in-
I'm fine with that, but I prefer, if Terry's available, great, let Terry make the call. That's why he gets paid the big bucks. But, you know, I don't wanna see her spending an hour trying to get a hold of Terry, and then Levi can't get a hold of Levi, and then she's, well, now what do I do, you know?
Right, and that's
After
where
Terry,
it's-
you just get a hold of who you can get a hold of.
That's
Right.
where I'm
Mm,
saying, if
right.
it's city commissioner, she can try Terry, she can't get hold of Terry, then she
Yep.
come to me,
Mhm.
then she can go to Dave, and then, you know, just go down the line. Whereas if we say these two, well, then after these two, then you can't get a hold of them, then what?
Right.
Right.
Well, I wouldn't do that, but
But you know what I mean?
yes.
Yeah,
And
it
you,
just-
and you, and
I
you,
think it's just like the chain of command, just,
Mhm.
that's the way you want it.
right, right.
And just make sure when you do that, you know, with all the communications we got now, just, and you did that, you sent it out to, but just keep doing that, just let everybody know.
Yeah,
in
we
the
discussed
commission
that,
what
and I
you
asked her to
decide
send
do
it
that,
out by email.
You know, that just be,
Yeah, as
So-
long as you have this thing, you're pretty well.
Yeah.
So to clarify, do we wanna leave it city commission then? Or do you wanna leave it president or city commission member?
I just
My
Or-
opinion is to leave it the way it is.
Just leave it the way it is?
That's my opinion.
I think it's easiest to leave it the way it is, just noting the fact that Ashley was obviously would first call, you know, in her head that she would call it, and then it's not so restrictive if something should happen. So, that's just my opinion. I don't know what Mike and Dave think, but
well, you got sheriff in there, well, he's the director of,
that's consultation though, so.
emergency management.
so he should, you know, he'd be a good one to
He's the one that-
call and say, what's the weather gonna do?
Right, right, yep.
And he usually calls me too if they have to open up the armory and if they close the interstate, so.
Are we done with that part?
Yep.
Can we back up to the harassment part?
So which one?
The harassment part, so it's on page 7. So Sean, when he was here, and we started kind of going through this before life happened, Sean had brought up, because everybody's assumption or everybody's take on harassment is different, because people are different. People take jokes differently, and so Sean had brought up that they used in many jobs that he's done, this red light, green light approach. So it leaves it up to the person who's getting the comments said to them, or who's the one that's being harassed. They can say, you know, like, red light, like, stop, that's inappropriate, I am not comfortable with those comments. Or like yellow light, like proceed with caution, like you're on that line of my uncomfortable zone type of thing. So, and I sent this to you guys. I do believe
Yes,
I
you did.
sent it.
Yes, you did.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. I send so many emails, I forget what I send. For you guys to read through, and just so you have, to get your thoughts on it and what you guys think. I liked it because I agreed with Sean. Everybody's different, so everybody's take on what harassment or sexual harassment is different depending on what kind of jokes a person can take or what kind of jokes somebody else says, and this is kind of a way to let them know, hey, I'm not okay with that, or yep, that's fine, or let's err on the side of caution here and not, talk about that type of stuff. So I did email it.
Hand me my computer then.
There's my copy. Mine has highlighted stuff in it, though.
I think it's good. I don't know that it has to be in the policy book. I think it's more of,
A separate item that you would hand out.
or Jim's not here, so we can say it, that they may have to have a seminar on sexual harassment or other things to make sure that everybody's aware of it.
Just making sure
I have
you're
not read the
texting
whole,
me.
I have not read that whole policy yet, but I know that we talked about it a little bit, and I can see where the benefit is, but
Is there an issue of being able to quantify that? So is it one red light? Is that?
did you read it, Levi?
No,
I haven't had a
I'm
chance to
serious.
read it.
I'm kind of serious
Yeah,
about it.
I don't know how it works.
No, I
How would
agree.
you apply that?
I'd have to read through it's been a while since I read through that whole thing, but we'd probably have to come up with, because that's just a guideline. So you'd have to come up with your own, okay, if I tell you red light, then stop. If you don't stop, then maybe there's other actions. Then you go to the supervisor or the personnel commissioner, or red light means red light, stop. Maybe there are no second chances within a 6-month period, or there would have to be stipulations, definitely. It's just something that Sean had brought in when we were talking about it when he was here, and so I just thought I would let you guys look at it and see what you guys.
That's where I think it should be not necessarily in the policy, because each individual person, Paul may take one red light and that's enough, and he doesn't want any more, and Dave may say, well, a red light can be 4 or 5 times before he's had enough. But it's up to that individual to know that at any point there's something that they don't feel comfortable with, that they can come to the personnel commissioner or their supervisor or the city commission, and that our stance as a city commission is that we will not stand for any type of harassment.
Right, and Jim is listening, just so we know.
I just don't want it to inhibit
Right.
that individual from being able to go either to the supervisor or above, and I guess it would be difficult for me to say a red light type of a situation, but that's because my military career, I went through a lot of crap. But I just don't want it to inhibit an individual thinking that they have to have so many criteria lights to get to wherever they have to go. So
I think we have an awful lot in here already that covers a lot of things that would be just more. I think it's just something that we can talk about at a future time. I don't think we need to do it right at this particular moment, especially if we're not having any issues at this particular time. I think we just kind of,
Because I think our 4 steps that we have under harassment pretty much spells it out that, first, if you can find somebody that is a witness to it, that you talk to that individual if you can. If not, does it stop? And then you go up the chain of command to your supervisor or the personnel commissioner.
Yeah, it was just a thing.
Like I said, I think it's a reference for
Right,
you guys to sit down through a seminar or whatever for a morning
right.
to learn
So
about.
did I hear Levi say he's volunteering to do the seminar?
I am not qualified in any way to teach it.
I thought I heard Jim text it to me.
Jim's
I know
setting,
there is many
Jim is already setting a time aside for that, or
I think so.
But I
We'll
can tell
see.
you that I've sat through many of them, and all of them are worthwhile.
they're
So
beneficial, yeah.
they're very beneficial. You just need to pick one that works best for us.
Okay, we'll move ahead, the end of page 11 and the top of page 12. Again, this is, deals with conflicts of interest, and it's also gonna kinda come under the bereavement too. She had put in instead of, she put out, marriage, and they put, for the conflicts of interest, domestic partner or childhood friend. I don't know if you wanna elaborate on that?
Because of today's society with, I mean, there's same-sex marriages and like, myself, I'm not married, but we live together. So trying to be, what's the politically correct, I guess, so you're not offending anybody.
I think it is covered basically when it says, or whose relationship with the employee is similar to that of persons who are related by blood or marriage, which I would guess a domestic partner, you would consider them as similar to marriage, even though you haven't had a certificate that says that.
Right, it just can be sticky in today's society is why we were thinking it would be best to have that. I mean, we don't have to. It was just, again, these are just options that we went through last year when Sean and I were going through this.
Can't you just say relationship?
Well, it doesn't hurt anything to put it in there. You just add it, I think.
You know,
But
by
I don't think
blood
you would
or
cross out
relationship.
marriage, you would
Right.
add.
Well, we could add, yeah.
By blood or relationship.
Well, it really opens it up when you got that word similar in there. It's just,
Right. I
You know,
mean, it
that's-
could be anything.
could be anything, yep. So,
Because when I read it as similar that, your neighbor that you've known all your life is like your brother.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's going to be, and that's more of a conversation that you have to be, that our employees need to be open and honest about what's going
Right.
on.
Because I read it differently, and I'm the one that posed the question, and Sean agreed that was politically correct at the time anyways when we were talking about it, to put in domestic partner, or because there's just so much,
do
times
you
are just different.
what do you think, John? Should we add it in there or leave just the marriage?
Well, couldn't you change marriage to relationship, because that covers everything?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking John. If there's a simple, if we're gonna beat this up all night, or if we just come up with something simple that might work, or leave it the way it is.
Something simple sounds good to me.
So,
Or I have no objection to leaving it the way it is.
okay. What are your thoughts, Levi? Just put that, just add the domestic partner to it?
I think if
But
we
leave
just
marriage?
leave it the way it is.
Just
I
leave it the
think
way it
it's-
is? I have no problem with leaving it the way. I don't know what you guys' thoughts are. I don't have a problem either way.
Well,
So-
I don't either.
I think it's covered with the similar in there, and yes, it does maybe clarify it, but it might become a little more touchy on the next one,
Oh,
but not on this one. So,
it doesn't matter to me. I just, something I had seen, so.
just leave it the way it is then? What do you guys think? Tick, tick, tick.
I was just looking at the last paragraph there. Do we have to talk about any NDA types of, anything in that particular paragraph to nail it down more?
Which were you looking at?
The last paragraph, the materials, products, all the property of the city of Hillsboro should never be given to an outside firm or an individual except through normal channels and with appropriate authorization. That appropriate authorization is usually an NDA. Do we need to spell that out, or, John, is there any legal aspects to that we have to worry about? Because if you're trading information mutually, then an NDA would cover both parties.
Not to jump in, John, but do we really have to worry about it? Because 90% of our stuff that we have has to be disclosed. The only thing that couldn't be disclosed would be personnel information.
Right.
which
Well,
would be,
if we're dealing on property or economic development, there's some things there that between parties that could be, could be issues. You know, we've been doing it
I
without
see your
one, so-
point, and maybe the answer is take a shot at a non-disclosure agreement and see how simple you can make it, and if it's worth the effort, or if we just stay with what we have, which says appropriate authorization.
I don't like that last sentence, though. Any employee who participates in such a practice will be subject to disciplinary action up to and including possible discharge. Well, you know, if he's working for the public good, you know, it's just another protection. But we can have that discussion later on too, Paul. It's just something that while we're going through.
Mhm.
And usually they're a canned NDA that we would have as a city, and we just fill it out, and then it gets agreed between two parties, but
Well, should we just leave it the way it is now? Because we're gonna probably review this again in another,
I think so.
yeah, we'll just move forward. Next page, 13, hiring of relatives. Right now, the highlighted area there is as it is now, a city employee may take part in decisions to hire, retain, promote, or determine the salary of his or her immediate family with commission approval to avoid potential conflicts. In addition, a city employee may be assigned responsibility for supervising and or directing the work of an immediate family member with commission approval. That's how it's written right now. Levi has a suggestion there, so I'll let him take over and we can go from there. But that's how it is written right now.
As we talked about the last meeting, I think it's in the best interest for us, the best interest of the employees that we would have, that if they are a immediate family member or anything that we have spelled out in there, that they should not be under the sole supervision of one of that relative, and put them under dual supervision with both of them. So in our case, currently Zach would be under Zach would be under Jim and Ashley. So any issues that come up would have to have both of them sitting down when we go through it. In government, it is nepotism is illegal in the federal government. Nepotism is illegal in our state government. The Century Code does allow our city government to do it, but there's a lot of cities, especially larger cities, that don't do it. Part of this is just to make sure that we are not showing favorites by any means. I'm not saying that we're going to have an issue, but there is that potential for issues to come up, and things could happen down the line. Some of our employees may not feel comfortable coming forward if it's a harassment issue or anything else, if they have to go to the direct supervisor, who's also the relative of the person they're having an issue with.
I'll put my 2 cents in. How I look at it is I have no problem with it the way it is. I think we have enough checks and balances that's taken care of. If I were to give it all, I would maybe go with the dual supervision, but I would have the personnel, whoever has that file, he would be the dual. So like if it was Public Works, it would be Public Works, then whoever has that personnel file. And if it was a city auditor that had a family member, that would be the personnel file holder at that time too. I don't necessarily want to put the extra burden on our superintendent or our city auditor. That's just my feeling. I don't know, Jim is not here to say, but I would speculate that Jim, and I hope I'm not speaking for him, I don't think that he would like it this way, and I don't think Ashley, she's here to speak for herself, but I think she doesn't prefer to be involved with that either. Correct me if I'm wrong. So, I think there's so many safety things put in place already on this, whether it comes to the hiring and the commission approval and so on and so forth. I don't think we need to. Yes, we can talk all day as, well, do we want family members? You know, in today's climate, it's hard to get good employees. And do we want to, do we want to go down that road? I feel that I don't. Again, this is my own personal opinion. I think that we just do a good job, or as best a job as we can as a city council, to make sure that whenever this is in place, that we have those fail-safes that are hopefully going to prevent that favoritism or anything like that. I just think we have to put trust in both our auditor and our public works superintendent that they're making the right decisions and they're able to correctly handle those people. We do have that chain of command, and I just think that I think we have to put faith in them that they're going to do a good job. Faith in us as a council that we're gonna stay on top of it. And if we have a co-worker out at the superintendent or in the auditor's office that has a problem, that as city council members we're gonna be sure to address it, so that we're not giving that appearance of favoritism. I think that's important on our part. You know, obviously, if those employees aren't comfortable coming to their supervisors, there is another place that they can go if they feel that somebody is getting played favoritism. But I just don't want to take away the opportunity, you know, for family members to be able to be hired by the city of Hillsboro. And that's just my opinion. I'll leave it at that. And Dave and
I agree with Paul that that paragraph there, we have the commission overseeing the process in two separate ones. And I look at the last hire, even though it was Jim's son, it was, you know, a seamless opportunity, and we were made well aware so that all the commissioners could take and, you know, weigh in on it too. So I kind of, again, like the current, you know, way that it's written, and it doesn't put an undue burden on any, either one of the supervisors basically to have to take and do any extra work.
I will say this, that I am one commissioner making one opinion. It is up to the rest of you guys to decide which way you want to go. But I think that we have all the policies and rules that are supposed to be in there. We're supposed to follow the policy book, but that doesn't always happen. And this would put us in a harder situation. It is out there, the climate, the community that we are in, the way that our government works. All you're doing is putting more things or ammunition for our community to look at and say, and are we doing the correct thing? Yes, this individual may be the correct person for the job, and I'm fine with that. I'm not saying we shouldn't hire a family member. I'm just saying we have to have different checks and balances for what's going on. And it can't be a free will, I'm going to hire my son or daughter or brother or sister or mom or dad, and everything will work just the fine for every other employee. You should know that if you are going to hire that person, that there is some extra checks to balance, and then there might be some extra work that has to go along with it. That is my opinion. I've talked to a lot of people in the community. That's somewhat of their opinion. I've got a letter from other people that said that that's at least we should do.
Mm-hmm.
And that is my piece on it. But again, it is up to the group to decide. We don't always have to agree.
what are you guys' thoughts, Dave? Mike?
It's my opinion that we put our trust in Jim. We hired him. He's done a good job. And I think we continue to do that. And that's my opinion.
Yeah, my opinion is to leave it. I think that if we have problems, Paul's got the portfolio for, you know, they can come and talk to him, and I trust everybody down there. So that's my thought.
Okay.
So,
Hearing 4-1 then?
well, it sounds like that, so we'll put it as, when we redo this, Ashley, we'll leave it as the way it is. And at that point, of course, Levi or whoever has an opposition will be able to voice their opinion in a vote. But as of right now, we'll leave it the way it's worded when we type this up again. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. And thanks for everybody's opinion. I know that's a touchy one, and I see Levi's point completely, but okay, we'll move on to the next one. I don't know if Levi knows what page that's already. He's usually on top of things quicker.
19.
19. Is this just a clarification then, Ashley? You want to clarify there? On the,
Yeah, we
okay.
just, we'll put that in just to clarify so that, people know that if you are a full-time employee and decide to take the family coverage, that you're forgoing your raise for 2 years.
I think under uniform allowance, we can take out the law enforcement according to Century Code. And the only other thing that we should add under Public Works is the shirts, winter coat, and light jacket must be high-vis or ANSI approved. And I don't know if we want to put in there that all employees must wearing them while out on.
I was talking to Jim about that too, and maybe you guys, I did talk to Mike a little bit. At one time, Jim was talking about that they gave them a clothing allowance of like $200. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, for work clothes.
For work clothes? So I don't know if you would take that away if you did the shirts, or how do you, what are your,
Take that away if we
take
did
that
the
away?
Because you're saying they'd get 5 shirts. I think annually we said you'd get 5 shirts, a winter coat every couple of years, a jacket every couple of years, and boots every couple of years. If I remember back what we had discussed.
Where do they have does Jim have something that he gets those ordered out of then, or how do they?
He's been letting, the guys pretty much go and get what they, what they want in different places.
Then how are they reimbursed, or is it billed right to the
I
city?
think most of those places have a city account.
So, yeah, and
Okay.
then they either charge it or else they'll put it on, the credit card.
And the only other one that that I just remember that we should add is we approved to give the lifeguards, if they stayed the full year, 1 swimsuit reimbursement.
But yeah, I agree with you on the reflective. Because some of them are wearing lime green shirts and they're nice, but there's no reflectivity on.
Right.
Lime green doesn't reflect at night, so yeah, we should add that into the.
So do they have a set allowance for
I don't-
this?
We never set an allowance, we just said
Just get what you need.
get what they needed.
Right, there was an allowance in the past, but we're not gonna do that now, right? Whatever they, as long as they ordered from approved,
Well, it was two or $250, I believe, for, if they wanted to just get jackets, like Carhartt, round Carhartt jackets, I think.
And I think that was every 2 years,
Yeah.
right?
That's just for the jackets though? Like the
Well, coveralls.
winter gear type
Yeah.
thing?
with this information, I would like, and I can share with everybody too, I wouldn't mind talking to Jim to find out, okay, because if we're looking at a certain dollar amount, or if they have a book that they can get them off, kind of where this is gonna come from. We're gonna say, hey, that we would like to have the 5 shirts in the winter, because I know he says they've gotten winter coats already, and things like that, so just so we can kind of clarify more before we put it on here. Maybe that has to come from a certain vendor, I don't know.
I don't think it matters what vendor, because at first we said we were gonna get them all with a city approved logo on it, but then they didn't agree to that. But I think as long as we say that yearly 5 shirts, a coat, jacket, and I guess if it was pants or snow pants and boots or every 2 years,
Right.
I think that's because how do we set a $200 price limit on a pair of boots where
Right.
not everybody's gonna be able to wear the same pair of boots to make it work? So I think
So no price limit,
I-
just
I-
every
And
2
Boots
years.
is steel-toed?
Right.
Well, that's why I'm wondering if we should maybe, before we print this up, if we should have Jim kind of say, okay, if we say 5 shirts, winter coat, and he kind of knows what we're looking at, and then it gets all in there, right, instead of we saying all this now, and then Jim says, well, what about this? You know, and before it's typed up, you know, we'd all get a copy of what Jim's recommendations would be, and then we could tweak it from there.
Yep, I agree, and then come up with a dollar amount.
Well, and we wouldn't, if they wanted to order it from, yeah, we can figure that out at that point too, but I think we should get Jim's input a little bit more, especially since he's not able to be here.
But it goes back to now the new winter gear has the reflective strip.
Right, right, and they already have a lot of that already, so he might be able to answer a lot of these questions already for us if he was here, but,
And as far as boots, I think they should go with either composite or steel toe. That's the policy at the county. They buy the county boots, but it's gotta be steel or composite.
are you okay with that, Levi, getting a little more information on that, just so we
I'm
can?
fine with that.
Yeah, because I just think we can, that way, being he hasn't had the opportunity to be here to represent himself, I think that would be a good way to do it, and maybe he can type that up or write that up or give you that information, and you can just share it with us, Ashley, and go from there.
Enforcement officer pay as part of
That's,
the sheriff.
there's code, yeah.
Right.
Okay. Got that, Ashley?
Yep.
Okay. Next. 24. Well, Levi, Mike beat you this time. Okay, bereavement leave. Me or somebody
Oh,
else?
yeah,
We missed
23.
23.
Are we adding Juneteenth?
23. Good job, Mike. You got me in trouble.
Are we adding Juneteenth?
The state,
If it's a federal holiday, I guess we,
I think-
Realize it was a federal holiday now.
the state has done it and the county has done it.
yeah, it is a federal holiday, I know that. So that will be added.
We didn't have to stop at that.
Is that what you said? Keep moving. Okay, bereavement leave, up to 5, is the 5 working days, is that in there now and you want to change it, or you want to add working? Is that what you're doing?
Just making, I don't remember why I highlighted that, to be honest with you.
Old age, Ashley?
Yeah.
Old age set in?
I'm thinking it was probably, if that's
Okay.
Monday through Friday, or if that's counting like weekends, since some of the guys work on weekends. That's the only reason why I think why I would have
Okay.
highlighted that.
So we'll just leave 5, up to 5 working days of bereavement pay,
Okay.
correct? Then we go down to the employer defines immediate family as the employee's spouse is the way it is now. And there they highlighted to change it to domestic partner. Any comments on that from? In today's environment, I guess I don't have a problem with it, I guess.
I don't have a problem with that.
Do we have to have that live in or have to be married in parentheses there?
Well, that was just a question. Like, can it be a live-in, or does it have? We wouldn't put that in. I'm just asking.
Okay, so that would be dropped, okay.
Yeah. Just asking if you have to be married, or can it be a live-in person?
So you're the way it is right now, you'd take out spouse and
Put
just put in domestic partner at
And
those
that
3
should cover it.
places. And the live-in, or that just was a question, so that wouldn't be included in the
Right.
wording.
Yep.
And you're okay with that, Dave and
Yes, I am.
Mike? How about you, Levi?
I think if you just change that, there's some other things that would have to get changed too. I think you'd be better off putting at the end, or the same way that we have it on. Or the same
Or
as,
similar?
similar.
Mhm. Again, John, I might have to go back to you. What are your,
Where it
what are your
says,
thoughts? Because the other one was on the conflicts of interest, correct?
I would say, or whose relationship with the employee is similar to the persons who are related by blood or marriage.
So instead of domestic partner, you want to put similar.
And just put or the same as it is on
Conflict
page
of interest.
12, or whose relationship with the employee is similar to that of the persons who are related by blood or marriage. Because then that's everything.
So they have, back on that page, they define immediate family? Do they define it as immediate family on the other section?
No.
No. I think it's a little bit different, you know, but that's why,
But then if you change, so if you change employee as employee spouse, domestic partner, parent, I just think it starts getting, if you add it at the end, it clears it up a little bit more.
So take out domestic partner out of all 3 spots and just put that sentence at the end.
Just put it at the end would be my thought.
John?
That's fine. It's consistent.
Yeah.
I think we want this to be friendly to city employees, so.
yep. Okay. And then we'll move forward to 26, right?
Shouldn't we just use the federal mileage rate? Because that's what the state usually does.
Is
For
that what
tax
I put?
purposes, basically,
know,
so
isn't
you
that
got
what I
North
put?
Dakota state mileage where,
Oh.
I think you just say the federal mileage rate. And then I think that's calendar year to calendar year, if I remember right.
Behind. What page?
This is 26.
So you want follow federal?
Yep, instead of state rate.
Did
And
have somebody
calendar
come
year
in
to
too,
calendar
say we're
year.
getting kind of quiet, so, so as we go on here, we gotta remember not to get too far away from our mics.
Okay.
I'm just relaying the message, so I know that's
Um,
important to people out
Recommending
there.
that we change the state rate to the federal rate. Basically, it begins at the tax year, calendar year, and drop the follow the state mileage rate. Just go with federal rate. John, that from a tax purpose, or JR, that seems to be the easiest way to do it.
I think so.
So got that?
Yep.
And then, is it still $35 per day for the state? For, you know, basically meals
Yes.
per diem? Is that what it is?
Mm-hmm.
So we can't change that at all then?
It's
If
different
the-
out of state, depending on which city you go to.
Okay, yeah, that was my question. That's why I was asking.
But if we're following the federal is different
Yep, it is.
out of state.
But I think the state employees, they still, when they go out of state, they still go by the state rate, if I remember correctly.
Not when I go out of state.
Oh, the state government folks I worked with, I thought they stayed the same. Cause they were always pinching pennies.
Because we follow the North Dakota CT when we go out of state, which is, and we've always been told that it depends on, there's certain criteria by the state that you have to follow. For example, when you're leaving and how long and what city and what time you've been in there, but we followed whatever the federal.
And the reason I'm wondering is 'cause sometimes Jim and I have to go to South Dakota for MRES meetings, or we were supposed to, but we both got sick this last year. So that's why
I don't
was
know that those are
wondering
big difference. I think
No.
it's, but also remember some of those are paid like
Right.
meals, so then you gotta take those off.
Right, yep. But that's why my question was if this was the same for out of state as
If we're following the federal.
Just pack a
guidelines.
lunch.
just, well, I don't eat that much, so I really don't even, other than what they give me, I don't really eat, so.
How would you like it clarified? So you can type it up. You ask us.
Well, I guess whatever,
If we're following the federal guidelines, then
So you're gonna change the follow North Dakota State mileage rate to federal, and you're gonna
Yep.
follow federal, or there's no federal food
so not state guidelines, follow federal guidelines for out of state?
for mileage?
No, I got that already.
Okay, so we're gonna go, so,
we're
I don't know,
at-
is there federal
Is there
for
a
food too?
federal-
Okay,
Federal?
would that be adequate, more than adequate?
more than adequate.
More than
I
adequate?
just know that, I think it's 35 for here, and it might be like 54 or something for Indianapolis, so.
Okay, so
Every city
follow-
is,
You're not going to
Depends on-
Indianapolis, are you? So
No.
can't afford that, so.
I have a hard time going to Bismarck.
Okay, we got that. Unless there's any more questions. Move on to page 27. She has a question about city electronics, communications, policies, highlighted social media. So I don't know if she wants to add something or what her thoughts were there, or we're missing something that we should be covering.
I was just making sure that all our social media stuff is, if these policies cover them, and like I didn't get through all of it today like I wanted to. 'Cause we use a lot of social media, so, just making sure that these policies are in place for the social media and the website and things like that.
I suppose I should have been highlighting for those people out there listening what sections it's under. But this is under use of phone and mail services.
Everything, okay.
Well, it goes back to the issue we had earlier that, you know, all of us have personal phones. We got Ashley and, you know, so that but when you talk about open records law and you talk about social media on my phone, that's, you know, or any of the rest of us, then that's an issue. But to me, the social media is important on our website and all the things that we do with that. I agree with it, but, you know, basically open records or anything like that, they can come and ask us for our phones to take, and I just want everybody to know that that's an issue that you have to take and deal with, so. But I got no problem with, as long as we are cognizant of the use of our own LinkedIn, Facebook, or whatever it is, so.
Are we good there? Okay.
Mhm.
28, you have city vehicle logos.
Yeah, that one kinda got taken care of,
Okay.
last year, 'cause we got those are already on.
And we'll move all the way up to page 32. And is this a change or an addition or a clarification?
This clarification,
Okay.
'cause this wasn't,
We're under work hours of work.
yeah, this wasn't in the manual before, it just said, and actually the work, it was incorrect. It said we were open, from, I think it was 7:30 to 3:30 or something. Let's see. Oh, it was just Monday through Friday, 4:30. Have in there when we came to Memorial Day, so, from Memorial Day to Labor Day, and so we put it in there so that it's automatically in there. Is why that's highlighted and put in there, so that our summer hours are taken care of.
You may wanna put a headline like as for city or public, where it says city crew, but or public works, and say auditor's office.
I think that's
Oh.
in the next page, Levi.
Right, but I'm saying, it has hours of works, it should separate, saying that this is for the auditor's
Right.
office, this is for the public works.
Right, yep.
And
Just
yes,
put
that time is,
underneath
the time is 7:30 to 3:30.
for the public works, yep. Yeah, 'cause city crew, we have that separated, so I'll just put an auditor's office above that one. And that is still accurate. I had Sarah type up the changes and stuff, so she took, she put in my question marks that I had on my actual pages, so that's why they're in there. But that, yeah, that's correct.
So we're good. You got the city crew changed to 7:30. Levi said correct? No, was it 7 or 7:30?
7:30.
Well, it says 7, but
Seven.
It
it's
says
7:30.
7, but it's supposed to be 7:30.
that's what we're trying to clarify.
Yep,
I just
it's,
said
I,
it.
and I just wrote
You
it.
think
It was
it's
a
7?
typo.
They start at 7, Mike said. And that would make sense because they get a half hour off.
Well,
So
the
it would be-
sign over there says 7:30, or maybe it is.
It has to be, regardless, it has to be at 7, otherwise you're not getting 8 hours a day. So,
I thought it was 7:30.
you can just clarify that with Jim and get the correct number when you type it up. Then you'll know it is still accurate.
Right.
So, employee pay scale is the next page, 34.
And that we had just added, because there wasn't the administrative assistant, that part wasn't in there. And so I had Sarah add what we had put an ad out for this position and for what the range was for even when they hired Des. So that's why we added that, because that wasn't in there.
It was just added because it wasn't there, yep.
Yep.
Okay. And then summer public works and pool employees, Levi, suggestion?
Well, we had raised it last year. Our pool manager went up to 21, and we had been doing $1. So we just gotta move that cap up if we're planning on that. And then,
And I think that was approved in
we had approved it, we just need to change the cap.
Right.
Change it in here. How about the second part there, the pay
The
rate?
second one was, so we had approved to start them at 15, which we need to maybe change that cap also for summer employees, because we were matching with the Public Works. But what Kathy and I had talked about was that at one time we had employees that were working just in the office, and we were having them at 12 or 13, and then if you got your certification as a lifeguard, then you got the 15, and then if you got WSI, it was another $1. It's just more certifications for them to work
So what
on.
you're saying is we need to raise, because you're paying lifeguards at 15? So you need to raise that rate is what you're saying, the pay rate?
At 15, yep. And I think Public Works is the same. They're getting pretty close to 15 also. And then generally, we've been giving $1 an hour raise if they come back every year, instead of 50 cents.
Yeah, let's go back and double check what we have that we approved and
Oh, I know
change the
that. I
verbiage.
had her look.
Okay, so this
Yep.
is current.
That is, yep, the red is current. I had Sarah go back and look through the meeting minutes for
But
that.
like Levi says, I thought we raised for summer employees. I thought we did across the board to 15.
We did, that's what I'm saying. We
Yeah.
just haven't.
Oh,
So
that-
that 10
okay,
to
that I
15 has
didn't-
to be changed.
I just had her
But
look at
we-
one for,
We still need to leave it at 10 to 15, because what Kathy and I talked about was we weren't going to give those, if they didn't have their lifeguard certification, that's what we were basing it off of. They had to be lifeguard certified to get the 15. If they didn't have that, then they would be less.
so we'll just leave it.
So just leave it.
Yep, we just need to raise the 15, so if you went up to 18, then we would be fine, the cap.
Because of the 50-cent raises and things like that. So we're
and we
gonna
went to
change
a
that
dollar
for,
raise instead of 50%.
So-
50 cent.
so what would you change then, the 10 to 12 and 17 or 18, or what do you want to propose to change?
I'd go, 12 to 18. Or 12 to 18. And the same thing with
Pool
15 to
manager
20,
be,
and then change the 50 cents an hour raise to $1 an hour raise.
Did you get all that?
and then the pool manager one, did you get that one, Ashley?
The $25?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
And
Yep.
then it's also would be a
Dollar
$1 an
raise.
hour raise.
Does that kind of fall into what you guys remember, Mike and Dave?
Yep.
Yeah.
Got a special, the $25 for Kathy. I know that we did that.
Well, I don't know that we hit 25 yet. I think it was 21 or.
No, you
22.
had raised the cap to 20, but
Yeah.
you had raised the cap to 25.
Right, but I don't think she was at 25.
No,
Well,
I
that,
don't think
but
she's at
we
25
gave her
yet.
the chance to do the water aerobics and charge for it herself too.
No,
part of the
she gets
compensation,
paid.
didn't
No, no. We charge for it, and then she gets paid per hour.
And when you do get it written up, maybe you could just run that, you and Levi and maybe Kathy, and make sure that that falls in with what you need before we do any finalizing on it. And we'll go to page 35, This is something it looks like Ashley maybe added in the city of Hillsboro fraud policy.
This was recommended in the first audit that we got, and
Okay.
I thought it was a good idea when I visited with them as we were going through the audit, and it's kind of a cutty, cookie cutter approach, basically. It's verbiage that they gave us.
My only, when I read through this, my only thing is, a lot of it has to deal with fraud that's reported to the auditor. What is the process if it's the auditor?
That's why we get audited.
Yeah, but if I'm working with Ashley and I see that I suspect there's some fraud going on, what is my next step as an employee? Is that outlined in here? It is if it's City Works or something like that. But if it's Ashley herself, let's say Julie says I'm suspecting something here, who does Julie talk to? Because obviously she wouldn't talk to Ashley if it was a fraud thing.
Says right here, city auditor or the city legal counsel. So John would be, I think that's the last one.
And senior management, so they
Okay.
can come to me since I have the financial portfolio
Okay.
too.
So how do you want to go forward with this? I think we should get our updates. I don't know if this is something, you guys can correct me, if this is something that we'd want to put a draft online or not, if we should put a draft online, because obviously, if the public had any input, they're not having a clue what we're talking about sitting at home. Would you want to put a draft tab on our website so they could, if there was anybody interested, you could say here, just like your budget draft, and then they could review it.
We can put up
once
a
you-
PDF of that.
Right. So I think in that way and that also gives us something to look at.
With the
And-
addendum that they would, if they have a change that they want to recommend, they have to come to a commission meeting and
Right,
present to us.
Right. Yeah. Well, they'd have to either else talk to a commissioner or they'd have to do something, to.
But
to let-
in order to articulate those ideas, I think all commissioners should hear at one time if there's a change that's proposed.
So you're talking about after I make the
changes.
changes.
After you make the changes, because you're going to send us kind of a rough draft before we vote on it.
Right.
And that's so exactly what'll be listed in there is that it's a draft. It's nothing final. And then like Terry said, that any suggestions or changes should be brought, before we, because we don't, we want to do it, and get it right. So if there's any questions from the public, they have the opportunity, to address them, so.
And thank you to all the commissioners, Ashley, John, JR, that this was a heavy lift going through this handbook again, so I appreciate the good work that everybody did on it. Moving on now to the armory cleaning recommendation, the 1099 employee, $30 an hour plus North Dakota mileage rate. This was from the last session that we wanted to go back and get that clarification, and so I assume, Ashley, that was what she prefers?
Just 1 second. Sorry, I'm just finishing a note. Okay, so I talked to Sonia, and she said that she is fine being a 1099 employee and doing the $30 at the $30 an hour rate plus the mileage at the state or federal rate. So which I think when I looked, it was like 65 cents a mile.
And you would take and assign the duties as needed over at the armory?
Yep, we've already went through them. We've done a walkthrough already, and once she gets it all whipped into shape, because it's been a little bit, then it should only take her maybe hour and a half every week, I think is what she was talking about.
I'll move to approve to hire Sonia, last name? Trinidad as army cleaning company.
Okay, Levi makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second, but I think he has some
Quick
comment.
question, do we pay our mileage both ways, or just
Yes.
one?
No, there and back,
Okay,
round trip. And it's about,
26 miles.
That sounds right.
yeah, something like that. It was
Yeah.
like 25 or 26 miles.
And for the public out there, you know, that sounds like a lot, $30 an hour, but we have to remember, we haven't had a lot of takers from Hillsboro. So if you think this is a good deal, you know, you had your chance, you know, and, you know, and granted, would we like to pay somebody $20 an hour to quit there? Yeah, but guess what? We're not finding anybody. So if you're sitting at home thinking, wow, $30 an hour, that's a pretty good wage for cleaning at the Armory.
And
Hey,
actually,
that's where we're at, and,
it's coming from having my own cleaning business. That's actually on the low end, and you have to remember she's a 1099 employee. So really,
Right.
it sounds like a lot, but she has to do her own taxes on that side. We're not doing it for her, so you have to take away a nice chunk of that. So and this is the first person that's been interested. So
Right,
I think
right.
we have to take it.
so, and it's how you look at it. $30 an hour is a lot to one person. Next person, it's like you said, the lower end, so.
Anything else, Mike?
I'm for to hire. Are we setting any kind of a, you know, as far as how many hours she can put in?
That's why I kind of asked about Ashley overseeing her work
Okay.
production, I guess, to make sure that she
Yeah,
just
like,
doesn't come in and do a whole bunch of time and
If she thinks the floors need to be redone, she's gonna
She
have
knows
extra time, so she'll be going through you with that.
Yep, and she already knows that the commissioners have to approve any stripping or waxing because it would be extra cost. So she already knows that. We've already talked
So
about
she'll
that.
be talking to you what needs to be done, and
Mm-hmm.
she's not just, you know,
She isn't given free reign to clean for 5 hours one day.
No, the beginning is going to be longer than the first time a person gets in there to clean. It's always longer because there is pee on the side of the walls. There's little kids in there, and they do use them regardless of what I am told. I know some kids use them, not always, but they do get used. So there is different things that she's going to deep clean. So the first 1 or 2 times might be 2 or 3 hours, but once she gets it all back up to normal, then it will be nothing to sweep through there and get in and out of there. So
yep, I'm comfortable with that. I just
Okay,
didn't want to see it just getting out of control, and that's why I brought it up, so.
yeah, no.
Levi made the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Paul seconds. Any other discussion? Mike,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Levi,
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
And a yes for me. Moving on to HGC ticket 2021-007, 322 First Avenue Northwest. Update, had a meeting, Mike, Levi, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so Ashley, John, and I met with a realtor and a representative from Social Services of Minnesota property. They kind of know the conditions. Mr. Bird is in the nursing home right now. And he is under direction of Luther Social Services to help with finances. Because at this point there is no financial but Lutheran Social Services and the realtor are going to work until March 16th, and then they'll come up with a plan whether they're going to sell it or demolish or whatever the plan will be. They're going to let us know by that time, and so we gave them that. We had shut off their water as of last week. They do have an outstanding bill, and I said, and hopefully you're okay with it, that they could wait until the property's sold and everything is taken care of, because like I said, there isn't any funds right now to take care of it. They have to work through the court systems to sell and do all those different things. So that's kind of the point where we're at right now, is that it is working. They're just going to keep in communication with us, but they do understand a lot of the issues and problems that happened. And then there was a water break that happened couple weeks ago that damaged quite a bit of it. And so, we got the water shut off now, but, so that's kind of where that is at.
They're pretty overwhelmed with the whole
Right.
situation, so as much as we can work with them, the better. Because like Levi said, he has no funds available, so depending on what happens with this property is going to help him in the long run.
And basically what I had told them, the three things that probably needed to happen with the property would be, one, the garage needs to come down. Two, the house either needs to be teared down or rehabbed. And that would be the gist of, does that sound right, John? Those are the things that have to happen with the property in order for it to come in compliance. And I said, we're not gonna condemn it at any point as long as somebody has a plan that's gonna do it, so.
But the sellers had to let the sellers be aware of the city's conditions.
Right.
What do the other commissioners think? I guess I feel it's okay to let the water rate rise until the March 16th. Is that a consensus?
I'm comfortable with that.
You okay, Paul? Okay, Levi, so that's good to go there. Anything else?
Not on that property, no.
And Mike already said during his that planning and zoning meeting, he's going to have the contractors getting together next Monday at 10 o'clock to talk about the building permit process. Anything else, Mike?
Nope, that's it.
Moving on to the brewery liquor license and patio. I did meet with Dave, Steve, and Jamie today, walked them through and talked about the different issues and things that I thought were important from a pub perspective. Kind of the preliminary of how we are in the construction process. We did talk specifically about the patio and, that there would be food and things. So Steve has kind of asked me to take and come up with kind of some of the issues, kind of use Buffalo Wild Wings or Ground Round or some of the bigger establishments in Fargo and Grand Forks to kind of be the same process that we would use for the patio and the pub here. So did I capture that okay, Dave?
Excellent.
So I think that I'll be working on that, going out to the websites and doing those things. So we talked everything about, fire safety, occupancy. Jamie gave me, from the fire chief's perspective, a checklist, a form that the fire chief would fill out. So I'll do the preliminary on that, walk through it. Issues like fire extinguishers, all those things, as well as the number. And then talked about the gambling area. The potential of putting up a dartboard, electronic dartboard close to those, and how kids, would still be able to do it, and a family-friendly environment there. So that's kind of again where we went. Moving on now to new business.
Hold on, that was not. Ashley, did this Terry asked to put this on, or was what I asked?
That's what you asked.
That's not what I had asked to put on.
You said about the
The application process for our liquor licenses. Remember a while back I had submitted a different application process, just we hadn't talked about it again.
you
So
weren't
that
clear,
was
so I'm sorry. That's what I thought.
that's what I was following up on, is that we talked about the application process that I presented to you guys November, that we talked about changing it. We haven't moved any farther on that, so I was trying to see what thoughts were and how we wanted to change or what we wanted to do.
Well, it's all part of the state liquor license. Levi is what, we have to get the fire chief approval.
Terry, this has nothing to do with your liquor license.
Well, it does, because we have to take and define what the brew pub.
No, Terry, this has nothing to do with your liquor license. This has to deal with the licensing that we had, changing our license application for all liquor licenses.
I know what you're talking about here, Levi,
Now I do,
and
yeah.
I did not bring my pending materials or work
Right.
to do tonight. But there was some good information that you put out for the commission
Right.
and me to review, and we just need to get that back on the agenda. I can shoot Ashley an email tomorrow if you're not clear on what Levi's talking about, but I know exactly
I
what
know
you
what
mean.
he's
I
talking
saw
about
it
now,
today.
but that's not the way I read the email that was
Okay.
sent, or the text message that was sent, so that's
Okay.
my fault. It
So,
was a
no, that's something that
That's all
should,
right. I
should
just
go on the
wanted to-
agenda.
We hadn't talked about it for a while, so I wanted to make sure it came back on that we took
Yeah.
care of it.
And I missed
Right.
that commission meeting, but again, to clarify, what I'm going through for the pub is exactly what the ordinance should say for licensing from our perspective, in my opinion. And
But
it
your
talks about
license,
the Department of Health and all those things that have to be done in a
But-
checklist fashion. for the
the point was, Terry, is that yours is done already. This is for
No, mine's not
Futures.
done yet.
currently your application, and this is not changing your application. This is the application process as we move forward to make it a little bit easier and for everybody else. So it's not changing what you're turning in. It was looking at that and making it revamp it.
Sure.
Just as long as Ashley knows what, so it gets back on the agenda.
I do now,
Okay.
but yeah, that
Yep.
was, and it was
I
through
just
text
clarify,
message,
because
so it
obviously I
was a-
wasn't, at that meeting, so.
Yeah, now I do.
Now moving on to 6.7, where we go back and we talk about the credit card.
Yes. Okay. So I had done this research back in October and was supposed to present this at the November 1st meeting, but ended up with COVID and wasn't at that meeting. So, and then I apologize. I forgot about it. So, I know my typing is a little small. I can read it if you guys would like me to. So, a while back, Levi had asked about this JP Morgan Chase MasterCard so that the rec department could get a card. That's why we are looking into this, right, Levi? So
Correct.
that you guys could go underneath us. So I contacted Renee at OMB, and so this Chase Morgan MasterCard offers rebates yearly. The year goes from February to January. Rebates get sent to customers between March and April. Rebate amount is based off of a combined spent for all entities that use the system. So it's everybody, not just us. It would be like everybody that uses this Chase MasterCard. That's what the rebates are stem off of. Once the total rebate amount is calculated, it gets distributed to each entity based on the percentage of the dollar amount that their entity contributed to the combined total spent amount. Does that make sense? Kind of like how we do our sheriffs. We pay a percentage of the sheriff's contract, or we have our contract with the sheriffs and we pay a certain percentage each year. Does that make sense? Yes? No? So that's how they go off of how they delegate the rebate amounts to each entity. Hillsboro organizations that use this card already are the Hillsboro Public School. The school received a rebate of $2,500 in March or April of 2021. Per Vicky Grothman at the school really likes it. They have received close to $20,000 in rebates since 2013. She highly recommended going with this credit card. Trail County, I talked to Heather Hoovey. They use it over there. The county really likes it. She said just one thing to make sure is to ask if there is a fee when using it, because some vendors charge that service fee of about 3%. Last year was their first year using it, and they received $2,700 in rebates for about 6 months of using the card. I talked to Alyssa Short with the Trail County EDC. They really liked it. She didn't give me a rebate amount received, but stated they enjoy the kickbacks and use it on every expense they are able to. The credit card statements go out the 1st of the month. Payments are due by the 14th of the month. If doing an ACH and the 14th falls on a Saturday or a Sunday, payment will be taken out on the Friday of that weekend. The card administrator cannot have a card. So I would suggest, since I go to League of Cities and stuff, and I use that card to book rooms for me and Jim when we have different things that we go out of town for, I would suggest having either the administrative assistant be the administrator of the account, or possibly the deputy auditor, because that person that does not get a card, they're allowed to make changes to the account. They can add people, city departments, parks, rec, etc. So that would be where Levi could get a card for the rec department. They can add and remove people. They can adjust the credit limit. They're the only one that can do that. And they are the point of contact. The items that are needed to start the application process are past 2 years of financial state audit reports and a W-9.
Well, that should be easy for you to get.
Right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would move to,
The only question I got before you do that, Levi, would the money go into the general fund?
Yes, I talked to the auditors because I had reached out to them, and the money would go into the general fund, and then I have to go back and find an email from that conversation, but it would go into the general fund, and I do believe we'll decide if it needs to be moved somewhere. There is a process to that, if I remember correctly, so I have to send an email, but I already talked to the auditors. Everybody else that does it puts it in the general fund.
I'll move put a OMB with our deputy auditor as the card administrator.
I'll second.
We have Levi's motion. We have Mike's second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Let's see. Dave?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
And a yes for me. Moving on to 6.8, that has to do with some other HBC tickets.
Correct. I just wanted to follow up and see how John and JR and Ashley are coming with the process we are on the two properties.
John and I haven't really had a time to discuss too much yet with Christmas break and everything and illnesses.
So we're talking about Sasha and
The Lee property.
But,
Lee
yep.
property, yeah. My week this week will be much better than it has been in recent weeks, so I'll make sure that Ashley and I.
Okay. I was just checking to make sure it was still.
Good question, and I'm guilty as charged.
And I think this should be tied to the street cleaning proposal that we'll talk about next. And vehicles on the street and stuff probably is kind of the norm with these properties. But, okay. Anything else about discussion there? Now moving on to the new business. We don't have any. JR, Michelle, anything you want to say to the, the commission? I think we set a record tonight.
I'll move to adjourn.
Levi makes a
I'll
motion.
second it.
And Dave seconds. We are adjourned.